Hi there, welcome to Race Centre. I'm Dazza. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about dyno power readings and something that you need to be aware of. So here we have Shane's 1199 Panigale S. We tuned this bike a couple of years ago, and it's back in just for a service. It had a couple of rocket cover leaks, so we've fixed that up and then just put it back on the dyno to make sure, put it under load, that there's no more leaks. But the interesting part is the horsepower figures that it's giving us today from what it did when we tuned it are quite different. It has around, like at the biggest variation, with almost 10 horsepower more today than it did back then. But I can assure you, it actually doesn't have that much extra power. When it comes to these bigger bore bikes and many dynos, depending on how you're doing the tuning, this fella here, black bit of rubber, rear tyre, has a big impact on the dyno graph in terms of the numbers that you're going to see. So we get a few inquiries and stuff, and some people, when they get their bike tuned, they're just looking at that 2D graph and going, how much extra power did I make? And I guess that's normal because it's a tangible graph, it's something on paper that we can read, and it's a number. And then if you're paying for a tune, it helps justify the cost because, hey, I made 4 horsepower or whatever that may be. But you do need to understand that graph is just a 2D picture, and dyno graphs can be fudged if you want them to be, but essentially you need to understand what's going on with the dyno. So there's lots of sensors going on here. We've got inlet air temperature sensors, which is in this air ram duct here. And that in itself, depending on how the ram air is set up on your bike, is also going to affect the horsepower reading. There's a weather station inside this dyno room monitoring the pressure, the pressure, humidity, temperature, and all those things. And then the software of the dyno makes corrections based on that. Essentially, the hotter the room gets and the inlet air gets, the dyno software knows that the air is less dense, therefore the bike's getting less air is going to make a little bit less power. So in actual fact, the bike will be making less power, but as it gets hotter, the software will make adjustments so that you're getting an even power read, so it's stable, and it's controlling that. So it's making corrections. Where the parts that the dyno doesn't make corrections, and something you need to be allowed for, is the rear tyre. So every tyre has a temperature window that it likes to work in, and also has how much wear that it has. In this particular case, it's got a Pirelli slick in it. As I said, it's a track bike. And with this tyre here, as it's getting hotter, it's actually losing grip. So, like I said, tyres have a temperature window. If you're on either side of that, too cold or too hot, it's going to slip on the dyno roller. The dyno roller's there. It's trying to grip it as good as it can, but like I said, once that tyre gets out of its temperature range, it's not going to grip the roller as much, so it will spin more on the roller. The roller is measuring how much power the bike is producing, so if the tyre is slipping, it thinks there's less power. Okay, so, in a perfect world, if you could actually, these days I'm sure there's probably a dyno somewhere in the world that can do it, that if you were measuring wheel spin with speed sensors and stuff, then yeah, sure, maybe the dyno software can then make a calculation and make an adjustment for that. But in essence, that's just an adjustment anyway, and it's another correction, and it's just trying to provide you with that graph. But in this particular case, as I said, this tyre got to a point, and what I'm going to show you first is today's run, the highest number and the lowest number. I can assure you nothing changed on the bike. Bike is physically producing the same amount of power. Both runs, the engine was already up to temp, tyre was at a decent temp to start with, and you can see the highest number, which is 172 at the rear wheel, and measuring at rear wheel, not compensation for crank power, so that's why the numbers are a bit lower than what you might think, but it's real rear wheel power, 172, and then a few runs later, it's down to 168.9, and that's just simply because the tyre's starting to get too hot, and it's starting to spin on the roller. The next thing that happens to the tyre after that, if we're trying to tune the bike and going through and tuning it, the tyre's starting to get hot. Once it gets hot, it starts discarding rubber, and then the tyre is actually damaged so that it's never going to grip the roller again and the power's going to continue to drop. We allow for that, so that's why way back when we tuned this bike, I'm going to show you a run now, same bike, same tune, 162. But the bike was on the dyno for a number of hours and we were tuning it, playing around with lots of stuff on it to get we did an individual cylinder tune on this. And by the time we finished, the tyre was buggered, right? So that's why the power was low. Same map, and it's nearly 10 horsepower different, right? But now I'm going to show you the first run of when we did the tune. So when we first did the tune, you'll see 166. So through the process of the tuning, if we just showed you the graph, you say, hang on, you've lost 4 horsepower. But that's all in the tyre. So if you actually look at it now and you say, okay, when the bike wasn't tuned, it was making 166. But today was a great opportunity. It's tuned, it's got the same map in it, but it had a fresh new tyre in it, and it made 172. So really, we probably made, from the tune process, we probably made, 5 horsepower with the tune. We just weren't able to show it because of the condition of the tyre. Being a business, and ultimately, yeah, we are a business and we've got mouths to feed and bills to pay and all that, we can't always go to the process of, okay, we've tuned the bike now, pull the bike off, pull the wheel out, fit another tyre, put it on to do all that run. It's a lot of time and cost, and we'd have to drive up the cost of the tune to do that. So I just wanted to explain that. This was a really good case. The bike hasn't made any different power. We haven't really changed the configuration of the dyno since we tuned that, so it's not that stuff either. And the dyno has been behaving very consistently, so it's nothing to do with air, just the tyre. And the reason we know that too, when we tune bikes like 600s and our own race bikes in the race team, you get much less variation with 600s because they don't damage the tyre like the bigger horsepower super bikes. So just something interesting there. Dyno graph variations, when it comes to that stuff, don't hang your hat or rely everything on that peak number or the dyno graph. It's all about the power delivery too. And on that, like when we're talking about power delivery, where that graph, where these graphs are showing you, that's just that full throttle 100% run. When you're coming out of a corner, let's say turn 12 at Phillip Island and you're pouring on the gas, all the 20%, 30%, 40%, all that stuff and all the different RPMs matter. So if the bike's tuned nice through all that, it will accelerate and take off. And that's where your speed down the straight's going to come from, plus your lap time, is that acceleration off the turn. So don't get so caught up in dyno graphs. This tyre, like I said, if I keep running this bike now, it'll probably end up getting back down to 162 just because we'll damage the crap out of the tyre. So some information for you. Let's go make some noise.